Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 24-25 budget season. I'm going to open the regular meeting of September 26, 2024 at 7 o'clock. I'm going to ask Heather to call the roll.
Liz Costa,
Present?
Karen White. Here. Julie Hammond. Lauren Schlurf.
Here.
Katie Knudsen.
Here.
Sue Sherman.
Here.
Catherine Consalvo.
Here.
Sabrina Alberg.
Here.
Christy O'Clair.
Here.
Sarah Dulce.
I'm going to ask everybody to rise and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to do the approval of the minutes for April 11th, 2024, organizational meeting, and April 11th, 2024, the regular meeting.
Make a motion to approve the April 11th, 2024 organizational meeting minutes.
Second.
And we've a motion and a second. All those in favor? I couldn't count 1, 2. 7 in favor? All those opposed? No, yeah, 7 in favor. Abstained? 1. And have we, sorry, my phone's gonna be obnoxious now. Have an approval of the regular meeting minutes for April 11th, 2024.
So moved. I'll make a second on that.
Okay, all those in favor? 7 in favor, opposed? Abstained?
Yes.
1.
Abstained.
Okay. Okay, anybody receive any correspondence?
There's nothing on the email.
Okay, so before we start our budget season, I understand, and the committee understands, what's going on in the community. We understand that there are concerns with the ability to pay a mortgage, deciding on what you need to pay for, taxes, mortgage, medication, food, other necessities in your home. We are here for this budget season to make the budget that we can make with the information that is given to us. If we are asking for information, the vice chair and I have had conversations with the administrative team with our expectations, and when we ask for information to be teased out, that's what we're going to do, is tease out that information. Now that we're moving forward with this budget season, I expect that we're all going to be respectful and responsible to each other when we come into this room, because we're all adults and we're all trying to do what's best for the taxpayer and the children of our district. I sat on the school board for many years. I understand how contentious all of this stuff can be. And I just want everybody to know that we are listening to you. When you come up here this evening under delegates and individuals, I'm going to follow the same routine that the school board does. You'll have 3 minutes. We will take everything under advisement, whether it's here, you send us an email, You text us, you call us, everything will be taken under advisement and we will have conversations here. With that being said, I would like to invite Nola Whitman to come on up. Excuse me? It's nice to see you here tonight, Nola.
Good evening. I'm going to make a point because I only have 3 minutes. My name is Nola Whitman, and I've been a homeowner in Danville for over 35 years. I had 3 daughters who went through the Timberlane School District system from 1st to 12th grade, from 1997 through 2011. I have actively voted in this district the entire time I lived here, even before SB 2. Why am I giving my background? I will explain. I recently participated at the last CIP meeting as a Danville alternate. A member of the committee made a comment about posting on social media, and I listened. I'm here instead to bring up my concerns in a public meeting for the viewing public to see and determine for themselves if I had valid questions and concerns. We'll see if the shaking of the head and the skepticism in my facts will stay at a minimum. By the way, in my opinion, I believe that my bringing forth this information is related to the budget process. At the last CIP meeting, I asked why some projects are listed as being expended as capital versus part of the proposed budget or a separate warrant article. I listed examples of roof replacement and paving. It was suggested that I was confused with town warrant articles versus the school district. I did some homework. And interestingly enough, the person who thought I may be confused on these items was on the school board when some of the following warrant articles were on the ballot. March 10th, 2020, Article number 6, Middle School Roof and Repair, $500,000, which by the way passed. March 12th, 2019, Article 4, Performing Arts Center, outer wall replacement, $530,000, which also passed. March 5th, 2016, Article number 6, Danville Elementary Sprinkler System, $503,000, which by the way did fail. March 2015, I don't have a date because I could not find it on the website. Sandow Central's Kitchen and Sandow North Playground, both failed, but the playground request amount was only $90,000. My research is not as thorough as I would like, but I could only find limited information. I did not have the extra time to spend the day at the library to back some of my claims. So why the history lesson? Because the difference in capital improvement is part of the proposed budget of $1.8 million. When warrant articles are on the ballot, the taxpayers have the opportunity to decide its fate. I can feel the shake in the head, and yes, I know it's a school board that makes those types of decisions. Why is it related to the budget committee? Maybe ask about the bottom line numbers. For example, does the CIP have to find projects because they have the ability to expend $1.8 million? At the last facilities meeting I attended, which was Tuesday, there were no emerging repairs left to be done. Only 2 school board reps.
I'm sorry.
Man, I had this time too.
I know, you did a great job. Thank you, Nola.
Okay. Oh, I would like to submit this in a minute so that anyone wants to read them, they can.
Okay, thank you. Next is Jack Sapia from Atkinson.
Don't worry. Good evening, Jack Sapie from Atkinson. First of all, I'm here in my capacity as a resident, not in any official capacity. As Liz so elegantly stated, I think everyone's aware of the current economic situation here in the district and for that matter across the country. So I appreciate your words, Liz. I wish you all the best of luck moving forward. I'm not here to ask you to cut the budget, I'm not here to ask you to raise the budget. I'm here to ask you to get the budget right. And you do that through driving data. I sat on a multi-billion-dollar CIP committee for a Fortune 100 company, and basically 20 people out of 10,000. And the gentleman starting the meeting basically said, we're gonna compile data for a year. At the end of that year, we're gonna analyze that data. And at the end, we're gonna make a recommendation. But he also said, if anyone comes up with a suggestion or a recommendation as to what we should do, you'll be asked to leave the team. My point here is collect the data. There's a lot of disinformation out there right now, a lot of guessing of what the budget should be. Let the data drive those decisions. Another thing is what makes this a little bit different than, say, budgeting for a town. You don't have the luxury just to look at the number of employees, put a number on it. Look at the facilities and put a number on it. You've got to consider the safety of the children, the mental health and well-being of the children. There's so much more components to a school budget than there is, say, a municipal or town budget. So please take that into consideration, and I know you will when putting together the budget. I'm gonna leave you with this last story from, it was 17, 18, somewhere around in there. I got up at a public hearing and I asked, you've put nothing into the capital line. You know, and I said, we have needs and we have wants. But for instance, there's a $10,000 request for the track. They did not put that in there. $287,000 after, right? So be smart about the investments you make and understand the impact, both short and long term. There's a number of examples I can cite, but Liz keeps looking at her phone and the
Well,
amount of time.
I'm just so impressed that you're keeping it.
So, again, there's a lot of disinformation out there. I think when we stop, I think we all want the same thing in the end, all the residents. But the levels of disinformation really aren't fair to the people sitting in the back of the room trying to come up to speed and learn what stuff, to learn what's actually how this is operated. So I appreciate your volunteerism. I'm gonna appreciate your effort. Stay focused and keep your eye on the ball. This is about educating kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, sir. And under the wire. I'm impressed.
I didn't practice, but I know.
Okay. Next is the administrator's report, and we'll hear from the superintendent.
Thanks so much, Liz. I appreciate the opportunity. I'll start by just talking about some good news this past week. We did our elementary open houses. One left to go, which is Atkinson's going to be on Monday. So great opportunity for the families to come in, not only meet their teachers.
It's on Tuesday.
It's on Tuesday, not Monday.
Yes.
Not only meet their teachers, but see the student work that had been kind of done already and hear from the staff in terms of the learning that's going to be coming up. If you remember this year, we also partnered with you folks as BudCom, and we also had our virtual facility building tours those evenings as well. So it was great to meet residents that didn't have families in the schools, the few of them that did come, and we're able to engage them in the buildings and show them some real clear examples of where the capital investments have gone to date and the great stuff it's providing for staff and kids, but also some of those trouble spots and challenge areas that we're looking back into the future. Please also look for the middle school and high school opportunities coming up later on in October as well. Liz, most of my report tonight is going to be financial in nature. That's kind of what we're here to talk about over the next few weeks and months. The first thing I wanted to point out to this group, if you don't already know, that the district has a bidding policy. It's DJE. It's been a longstanding conversation at the board level over the past 2 years. I want to make it very clear to this group that although the policy was just revised and approved by the board in June of 2004, they had given the superintendent and my administration a directive long before that in terms of the bidding threshold about lowering it to $20,000, and we have stayed true to that. They also lowered the competitive bid to $10,000, and we've stayed true to that. So although the policy came effective in June, that has been the longstanding practice in this district since that board directive. The other thing I'd like to point out to you, talking about capital, there's really two main threads or avenues for this district to exert any sort of funding or expenses through capital. One is through the lease that we currently have right now, and to give this group an update, we're about halfway through the spending of that $25 million. So there's $12 or $13 million left to be tapped and decided about what projects that's going to go for. The facilities committee, the subcommittee of the board, is in charge of that work, and they're currently engaged in recommending phase 3, and we hope to have that out soon for the board to be looking at. The second avenue, Mr. Sapia alluded to it, as did Nola, is the CIP committee. Right now, in this current fiscal year, that group has $1.8 million allotted to them, and they are in the process of outlining and recommending budgets. I bring that to you now because I want to point out that there are also two key members of the administrative team on both of those committees, myself and the executive director. And the point of that is that those committees too can talk back and forth and have transparent communication because they're all geared towards the same aim, which is the capital improvements of our district. Third thing I want to point out is personnel. We're a school district. It's no surprise to anybody that our main cost driver is the staff that work directly with our kids. And in that regard, I want to be very clear with this group that we've started a review process with our admin team. We've also engaged myself and the school board in terms of some things that we want to look at personnel. We've taken a dive back about a decade, and we've looked at all open and vacant positions over the course of those last 10 years. And looking at that data and doing some analysis, I'm hoping to work with the board in the coming weeks and to bring some personnel recommendations to this group in the near future. I also want to give this group a highlight that there's an ad hoc subcommittee of the board right now actively engaged in looking at kindergarten, full tuition-free kindergarten in the district, but also looking at the early childhood programming. They are charged with bringing some recommendations after they're looking through some financials. Both Marie and I are going to present to them and work with them to run some models. They'll be coming to the board in October or November with any recommendations that data is yielding about kindergarten and or early childhood education. I do want to take a moment to unpack the unassigned fund balance again for this group. There's been a lot of talk about that at the board level in the community. And again, just want to be very clear and specific with those numbers because I've heard a lot of different numbers. Our unassigned fund balance this year is $16,390,237.05. It's not a penny more, it's not a penny less. That is the number. In terms of unpacking that for you, that number is made up of really two categories. One is additional revenue that we took in, and the second is the savings that we had within the budget in terms of the expenses. Let me unpack the revenue side for you first. The big ticket items there are between tuition to the district and interest. The district took in another $1 million than anticipated. We had $1 million come in revenue from the trustees of the trust fund. That was a repayment for a boiler that was purchased in the previous school year. They returned the contingency amount, which was retained the previous school year for a dollar amount of $500,000. In between additional federal income and food service, the district gained another $1 million in revenue. So just right there in revenue is 3.5. I'm going to move to the savings side. That is about $11 million in savings. I'm going to unpack that for you again in more detail now. $6 million of that is salaries and benefits. Within that $6 million is the delta between the guaranteed health maximum rate and actual what our cost was. That's a little shy of $2 million. We had a whole lot of positions that we were not able to fill last year as well that we are obligated to provide for students and children. Additionally, in those expenses, we had the lease payment that we raised and appropriated from voters. Because of a contractual date, it was not due this year. So between just those two things, you're looking at $8 million. Continuing down the line, there was savings in special education tuition. Been very clear that there was a change of law midstream. It opened up funding through the Department of Health and Human Services that we were able to access, and therefore we did not expend the dollars that we thought we were going to about servicing students that we can't meet the needs in this district, so we look for out-of-district placements for them. Additionally, for savings between special education transportation was a little shy of $1 million, and I've been very clear over the course of me talking about that. That's not good news because those are transportation routes that should have run for children to get them to our district schools and to our out-of-district schools. We pay per route for special education transportation, very different than regular ed transportation that is just a set rate every day through the year. Professional services, we saved $600,000 over the course of that year. The school board made a very strategic decision to return $400,000 of the $1.8 million in the capital line. That's also part of this unassigned fund balance. And lastly, there was $360,000 of a savings in rebates for utilities based upon some of the work that we've done for capital improvements. And we'll close with a small $100,000 mark of savings with books and resources. So all in total sum, I've just wrapped up about $14.5 million of that $16.4 million unassigned fund balance, with very specific rationale and reasoning for you. I'm happy to unpack that further if this group needs it, or to provide you those details in writing. Christy?
That's what I was just gonna ask. If
Absolutely.
we could get those in writing, that would be awesome.
100%.
It's a lot of information just to store up here.
And last, you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
good, thanks.
And lastly, I'd close like this. We're gonna talk a lot about expenses and spending over the next few weeks and months. I do think it's really important that this group and the general public understands where that money comes from. And this is not specific to Timberlane. We are a school district in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire has a very specific funding model. And no matter where you go in New Hampshire, what you are most likely gonna find is that that revenue comes from three specific sources. It comes from the taxpayer, it comes from the state inadequacy aid, and it comes in other localized revenue. Just to give you a proportion breakdown, no matter what district you're looking at, that taxpayer is going to be responsible for probably between 70 to 80% of the school district budget. The state is going to be responsible from 10 to 15% in adequacy aid, and then the rest of that, between 5 and 10%, is made up of local revenue. So I say that because this is not a Timberlane Challenger problem, it's a state of New Hampshire problem. And if we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about how we're gonna fund our schools, it's extremely important that folks are really clear about where that money is coming from. Liz, that is my report from you tonight.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Reports of the committees, budget committee members, I know Christy O'Clair and Julie Hammond are our reps for the CIP.
So we're still kind of taking a look over the list, have taken some things back to the drawing board to see if we could get more precise estimates on some of the projects. So I mean, there's not a lot to say, still more to come, still kind of generating, the to-dos.
All right.
Sue-
Okay.
Sue always has more to add. Do you have anything, Sue?
We did go over projects that are currently being worked on or completed, so we could kind of see the things that the CIP had recommended, what had been completed, what was pending and in process, et cetera. That was very helpful. Did talk about what's maintenance versus capital, and I would defer to Justin. He clearly stated what's the difference between maintenance and capital improvements, so I'd ask him to maybe repeat that statement that you made that night. I think that's worth saying again to the public.
Sure, I'd be happy to. We're looking at capital improvements about things that improve not only the facility, but to the value of the facility. And maintenance is about maintaining its current value. I think that's just the general practice of how we are approaching those two terms.
Thanks, Justin. So there's a lot of work to still be done. It's a
Okay.
good committee.
It is. All right, thank you. And Mrs. Knudsen?
I don't have much. Justin really touched on a lot of what the board has been doing. Our board has been fairly diligent, and as soon as Justin became our super, to charge him with finding fluff in the budget and making it more palatable for the taxpayers, because it is a burden, and what we do here at the school level affects the towns and the town budgets as well. And I feel like it's been going really well, so we're excited about this tax year.
Awesome, thank you for everybody's reports. New business, as we start to review the budget to the actuals, what I'm going to ask for us to do as a board, last year, Mrs. Sherman asked that we review and hold off accepting the budget until the end so that we have time to review everything, bring people back, and have conversations about what is being presented instead of having to approve it that night. I would like to do the same thing again this year, if we are in agreement. Okay, all right, thank you. So, new business, revenues. Review, sorry, I didn't mean to say revenues.
So as you know, in prior years, I have given you a list of all the expenses, all the lines in the budget for the expenses. This year, I tried to revise a little bit in more at an account level, so that way it's not a 9-page report that you guys have to go through. I gave you 13 years of actuals comprised in those more account category lines. I know it's a lot of information, but I think it's very useful information that I encourage you all to look through it. And I understand, and if you have any questions or if you need any further information, I'm happy to provide any information that you need. The second page of that report has a more visual view of what our district has done in the last 7 years. Please keep in mind that the year to the left is the most current year, so the graphs go from most current to the oldest. As you can see, the first graph tells us expenses by category. So we have operating expenses in the gray, benefits on the orange, and salaries on the blue. As you can see, salaries and benefits have been pretty steady throughout the 7 years. It has not been special spikes or things that have occurred within the salaries and benefits. The bottom three graphs are are categories that are more focused into providing the services for our students. The first category is the technology. As we all know, we live in a world where technology is everything, especially in education. So as you can see, obviously our expenditures for technology have increased in the areas of software and licenses and equipment. Our district has a dedicated device for each of our students. Every student in the district has a Chromebook that is assigned to them to help them and aid them in the learning process. The second category is the student services, which are the more direct services that are provided to students. The first category is special education, then professional services, transportation, supplies, books, and info resources. As you can see, the professional services is the line that has the big increase this last year. As our superintendent mentioned before, we are having a very hard time to hire employees. We have a lot of open positions, and last year, in order to provide those services that we are required to provide to our students, we had to engage with some professional service private companies that provided the services to our students. So that is the increase that you see there in the professional services. The last category is the facilities. Obviously, these are the schools where our students reside every day. And as you may or may not, our district for the last 20 years have not been following a rigorous maintenance schedule. In any of our buildings, we have buildings that are from 20 years old to 218 years old. We have 9 very old buildings, and we have not done a very good job maintaining them. This is why, part of the reason why we now have $1.8 million in the capital line in the budget, because it's a more proactive approach to solve the issues that we have in our buildings, which is very much needed. As you all know, when I started here, we had an assessment of every single one of our buildings. We had EI conduct the assessment, and they came back with $126 million list of things that needed to be done in our buildings, not to improve them, but to bring them to where they were supposed to be. So $1.8 million a year in our operating budget is not gonna really touch what really needs to happen in this district to maintain our buildings. With that said, the big increase obviously is the capital improvement. That big spike to the $2.5 million is because during the COVID years, 2021 and 22, all the projects didn't happen, so we had to encumber the funds and make the projects happen in the 23-24 years. So it's not that we allocated more money to that, it's just we had to encumber from year to year because in the COVID years we could not get projects done. With that said, that's the financial report. I will take any questions that you guys have. If you
I have a question. So when special ed comes in to present their budget, they will talk about the professional services and what RSA states about keeping some of those positions in the budget line, or,
Yes, I will,
okay?
we can definitely make sure that
I just
Kelly
wanna
is
make sure
prepared
we're
to.
following what we need to follow.
Yeah, the special education presentation will be a very detailed one.
Okay.
And it is also, it has to be that way because it's also the most volatile.
I understand that. Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna do the budget overview, assumptions and expectations.
Because I'm happy to speak to that piece.
Do you have it?
If I could have a minute to find what I'm looking for. A couple of things to roll through for these for you folks tonight. One, again, is about personnel and how we go forward with that. Because of the way of the timing of the budget cycle, all the vacant positions are budgeted at the level of the last person to hold them. And I also wanted to outline for you where we are with some increases for some members of our collective bargaining agreements. This year, we are anticipating that the nurse salary increase will be 8.6%. The teacher's increase for the CBA is 8.2%. Our paraeducators will have an increase of 7.6%. Our admin assistants and maintenance, their salaries will increase 4.5%. Our administrators, 3.2%. Custodians are in negotiations currently. We'll be able to report that back to you hopefully through this cycle. Same thing with our cafeteria workers. And we have yet to engage the board about our non-affiliated staff. I wanted to highlight the New Hampshire retirement system and what the obligations are for the district at that spot. The teacher's rate, the employer portion of that for this coming year is 19.23%. And for all other employees, that stands at 12.75%. We have not had any information coming to us about health or dental insurance, about that GMR. When we do have that, or whether they change that model this year, we'll be sure to bring that number here and report. It is typically a large cost and something that this group needs to be aware of. Regular ed transportation, we're looking at an increase this year contractually of 3.8%. Special education will have an increase of 3.5%. The special education tuition will be in the special education budget report in its entirety. We have a decrease in our electricity. That's due mainly to the rebates that we have had and the work that's gone on the capital improvement line. It's a decreased cost of 17% expected. We have an increase in propane of 11%, and that is primarily because we now have more devices running off of propane across the district. Natural gas and heating oil increases are minimal, not even eclipsing 1% at this point.
Any questions? Next is the SAU school board budget presentation.
So this is more typical of what you folks as a group will kind of see rolling through. I'll have the slide up here and you can also follow it in your packet. There is a detailed breakdown of the SAU budget that you can see some multiple years there, some actual costs, some details of lines. What we're going to try to do as a group of administrators that come to you is to kind of summarize that information and give you the main budget drivers. The first thing I'd want to point out is the header of the slide is going to look the same for each presentation. Moving left or right, we are giving you information about the fiscal year 24 actuals. So these are the last year of actuals we have. It'll always be on the top left-hand corner. We're going to give you the fiscal 25. That's the current year we're in right now operationally. You can see the voted budget for the SAU that's there. You can see the fiscal year 26, what I'm bringing forward as a proposed budget for the SAU. And then you can see the variance between the fiscal year proposed and the fiscal 25 voted. Looking at the SAU budget, I'm proposing it at $132,215.50 coming into this year. In terms of going over some of the main budget drivers, the first for me is about building capacity with the leadership team. 35% of that budget is working toward leadership training, sending folks to workshops to keep up with current law and policy, and development of professional organizations, both here and our adherence to them outside of our district in the state of New Hampshire. The second bullet also deals with capacity. This is a contractual obligation for non-affiliated administrators across the district about a tuition reimbursement. Again, building their expertise and knowledge so we are staying the most current and can do the best things that we can do in front of our kids, both with law and with pedagogy. Third budget driver for us at the SAU is materials. That's 13% of the total budget. These are general operational supplies, everything coming out of this office. And you can imagine that we do a great deal of communicating with folks and need a lot of materials to be able to do that. There's a data piece to this. Our essential professional services are also within this budget. That's 11% of it. These are our data management situations specifically for HR and also for the finance department. So a lot of sensitive and very important information is housed and kept there. 8% of this budget is about staff. There's a portion of this budget that is tied to the retirement and us celebrating those educators that have been with us for a period of time as they kind of make that decision to move on to something different and kind of an afterlife after school. And we want to make sure culturally that we are recognizing them and then continuing to learn from them and inviting them back into our district to work as part-time, as substitute teachers, as continuing to keep that knowledge base with us. And lastly, I would point out to you that 6% of that budget really has to do with goals. It's about our district opening and supporting the district welcome we have with all staff. If any of you attended it this year, we host about 700 of our staff all together in the PAC. It is a time for us to set the tone, to set the goals for the year, to share the board goals with them. This year we had a student speaker who was a past graduate address all of our teachers and staff about how important it is, those adults in people's lives. It's a thing that kind of sets the tone and lets us pull the trigger for the year. The essential budget drivers for SAU have been presented. I'm happy to field any questions that you have.
Does anybody have any questions for the superintendent?
I'll be here all for the following months if questions come up.
Okay, no. Going once, going twice. School board.
School board budget, I also met with the chair and vice chair and we talked through this portion of the budget as well. Again, same exact header. Our last complete fiscal actual was 24. That was in the amount of $285,059.53. You can see there that the current operational year we're here is $359,830. That was the voted portion of this budget. We are proposing for fiscal year 26 budget for the school board of $343,830 for a small degree of variance. Three essential main budget drivers and essentially one main budget driver for this group is about law and policy. This is the counsel we get from legal. Currently, we are engaged with Drummond and Woodsum for most of the business, and Sol, Leslie, and Kidder handles our personnel and HR pieces. It's a large part of the budget, and there's a reason for that. When you don't do things that are either by policy or law, it costs the district money in the end. So we want to get it right the first time. There's also two pieces of governance that's here as well. There's independent third-party audit that's within this budget. That's about 15% of that total. And moving down, there's also school board dues, which makes up about 5% of the school board budget. Put together, that is 75% of the school board budget. So you have the three main drivers in front of you. Like the SAU budget, I'm happy to answer any questions this group may have.
Mrs. Sherman?
I'd like to make a motion to accept for consideration and review the SAU budget.
Okay,
I'll second.
all in favor? Any discussion? Unanimous? Thank you. You want to do the next one too?
And then I'll make a motion to accept for consideration and review the school board budget.
We have a motion and a second to approve the school board, to accept them for review. All in favor? Unanimous? And then now we have the technology budget presentation, and I think Mr. Henderson's gonna,
And if I could make a funny for a second, I think it's great that I get to control the technology for the technology director. Here we go, Ken.
I guess you don't need.
Thank you for being here.
So in your packets, you will find the technology portion with the same header Mr. Krieger was just discussing. So my proposed budget this year is $1,099,015, which is a variance. Basically flatline, we're up $1,811 over what we voted in last year. Some of the drivers this year, again, we, like Mrs. Watkins was alluding to, we run a lot of applications and services in this district, and they're increasing year to year, just inflation and, those are going up, average of 3 to 5%. I kind of read the tea leaves on a lot of this stuff and see trends in the applications. Some go up quicker than others, some kind of more flatlined. So I try to budget for what those applications will be for the following year, which is sometimes difficult, but you can kind of read the trends on which way they're going. We are going to be proposing a new website and communications platform next year, so I have some earmarked $30,000 for that, which is to look at replacing our current website with something newer and more cohesive that would tie into our communications platform as well, something to be a lot more robust than what we're doing today. New district firewalls, that's the big new project ticket item, if you will, for $70,460. Our firewalls are devices that connect and protect us from the internet. We have 8 of those across the district, and those are a few years old. We want to look at getting those up to date with the newest generation. And we're also looking at moving our phone system from the old telephone system, the old POTS lines, it's called plain old telephone service, copper lines, to running over the internet. And that's gonna increase the load in the firewall, so we wanna make sure we get robust ones to support that. Our current video cameras, access control, and we added new door intercoms this past summer, are all cloud-based systems, which means they stream to offsite to the cloud. We don't have the old-fashioned recorders on site anymore. That's a good thing in that it's very protected, it's easy to accessible to get to. The one, of course, negative is that there's a yearly recurring cost for that. So as we add more cameras, access control and door intercoms, the yearly recurring costs on that increase. So we're looking at almost $11,000 increase over last year based on those additional devices that we're supporting. My technology supply line for years and years has been the same. I have not really touched that. It's been flatlined. This year I'm asking to increase at $10,000 because looking at the actuals, I'm continually doing transfers to cover that. We have, Mr. Krieger was saying, Mrs. Watkins, we have so many more devices in this district than we used to. Those devices mean more peripherals, more supplies, more cables, keyboards, wireless mice, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm asking to just more accurately budget for that instead of continually doing transfers to cover the increases in that. The reason why I'm not up, looking at all these increases, part of the reason I'm not up too much is that the major projects, and the firewalls was the big one. Last year we had the back-end phone system and the new door intercoms, which were 2 big ticket items, if you will. So that was about $50,000 and some change over what the firewalls are. So that's why there's a little bit less of an increase than there was, and you would expect seeing all these items in there. So that's all I had for budget drivers.
Any questions for Mr. Henderson? I think we're good. Mrs. Sherman?
I'll make a motion then that we accept for our consideration and review the technology budget. Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept for review the technology budget. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Is there any other business before the committee this evening? What I would like to do is thank everybody for being here this evening. I also would like to encourage people to go on out and see go see Atkinson and the improvements during the open house. The high school and the middle school, I know the high school is on the 17th from 4:30 to 7. And the middle school is on the 23rd at 4:30, I believe as well, maybe at 4:00. I was a little hesitant about using the QR code because I'm not as phone savvy as some others, and it was quite easy to use. It gave you a great purview of what has been repaired and replaced, and it's just a great way for the public to see what's been happening in the schools building wise. I thank everybody for being here, and I look forward to a good budget season. Yes, sir.
Just one thing for other business, just a
Mhm.
calendar suggestion or change I'd like to make. We had the curriculum and professional learning scheduled for a little further out.
Mhm.
One of our administrators has a conflict, but would still really like to be here to present. We would like to move up that presentation October 24th, if it's okay with the committee.
Absolutely. Mrs. Sherman?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could get a new calendar that shows when all the
All the-
presentations.
okay.
I didn't see that in the packet. I like to keep track of
Okay.
that, so.
So could we do what we did last year? Actually, I guess we're still going. Could we please have like that running tab that we did last year?
Running tally of
Tally of-
the three, like, tally those up and we'll start with those.
Yeah, and just keep moving forward. All right. Maria knows what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Because I'm really quick to get this done. All right, if not, we are adjourned for the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.